And after this, we have our Outfront exclusive tonight. Pope Leo's brother, John Prevost, is my guest, the first American pope making headlines by standing firm in his opposition to the Iran war. His brother will be with us next. And we remember CNN founder Ted Turner, a man who revolutionized television. And finally tonight, tribute to Ted Turner, the legendary and outspoken media maverick who revolutionized television news when he founded our channel, CNN.
I dedicate the news channel for America, the cable news network.
He made history that day in 1980, creating the first 24-hour news network. And CNN's ability to cover worldwide events, from the Gulf War to the collapse of the Soviet Union, led to Turner being named Times Man of the Year in 1991. And it matters so much to all of us, but he was also a pioneer in more than news. He was a philanthropist who founded the United Nations Foundation, a conservationist who became one of the largest landowners in America. Turner did, though, call CNN the, quote, greatest achievement of his life, one we hope we can continue to maintain. Ted Turner was 87 years old. Thanks so much for watching. AC 360 starts now.
So we need to know what's going to happen and where these people are going to go.
Randy Kay, thank you.
Sure.
Very scary. It is a story spanning the globe, yet touching individual lives, the kind of story that Ted Turner built CNN to report. Sadly, this one is about him. Ted Turner died today. He was 87 years old, and what a force of nature and a pioneer, not just in cable news, but baseball and boat racing and bison preservation and world peace. Here he is. It'll be 46 years ago next month, launching what would become what you are seeing right now.
To act upon one's convictions while others wait, to create a positive force in a world where cynics abound, to provide information to people when it wasn't available before. I dedicate the news channel for America, the cable news network.
Well, he fought a lot of skeptics, many of whom ran broadcast networks, to even get to that moment, which he later said he'd been thinking of for years.
Well, I actually thought about it back in 74, 75, 6 years before I did it. I thought it would be really convenient whenever you got home to be able to tune into the news instead of having to get home at 6:30 or wait till 11 o'clock, because in those days the news only came on in the early evening and very late.
Well, the idea caught on slowly at first, and suddenly one January, Ted Turner's brainchild was in the right place at the right time in a way that no one else was.
This is, something is happening outside. Peter Burnett joined me here. Let's describe to our viewers what we're seeing. The skies over Baghdad have been illuminated. We're seeing bright flashes going off all over the sky.
Skies over Baghdad have been illuminated. That was CNN's Bernie Shaw. Peter Burnett was there, and company at the network that Ted built at the start of Operation Desert Storm. Two other CNN veterans, television pioneers, join us now. CNN's Christiane Amanpour and PBS's Judy Woodruff. What a remarkable person to have graced this planet and created so much. A complex figure. Christiane, people tell stories about Ted Turner in the early days of CNN walking through the newsroom like here in his bathrobe, grabbing coffee in the break room, getting snacks. What do you remember about him from back then?
I remember that. I was
hard to forget.
An entry-level desk assistant, and he would come down really, really early, or whenever it was. I was on an overnight shift or an early morning shift, and it was like the parting of the Red Sea. We'd all just sort of stand back and let the great man walk forward, and thinking, what is he doing in his pajamas and his bathrobe? But I just thought it was so unbelievably cool, because right there and then you saw that this truly great man was a man of the people, so to speak. You know, there was very little sort of barrier between him and us. Not that we were all friends and on first name basis, we worked for him, but we knew that he was absolutely in love with CNN, loved the creation that he made and loved the impact that it was having, and all of us willing foot soldiers, saluting and following our commanding officer into battle, which literally we did, through thick and thin, through when he could make payroll, maybe when he couldn't. And it was just the most exhilarating experience, amazing, especially for a young entry-level, wannabe foreign correspondent like myself.
But he created a place that an entry-level desk assistant could become a foreign correspondent, and one of the greatest that has ever been, where if you were at a broadcast network, that would never have happened back then in that time in this way. Judy, you had such a great story about meeting with Ted Turner in Atlanta before taking the job at CNN. You asked him how he felt about women journalists. Would you mind sharing that?
Oh, I'd be happy to. I've told this story many times. But what happened was that Tom Johnson, who was then the head of CNN, had approached me about leaving PBS, where I was, to come to work as an anchor in Washington for CNN. And he and I had conversations that went on for months. And finally, we agreed, except he said, we really have to have the final conversation with Ted, who's on board, but you need to go talk to him. So I'm in his office. I walk in, and one of the very first questions I asked him was, what do you think about, I need to know, how do you feel about women in journalism? Do you take women seriously? And he looked at me, put his hands on his hips, and he said, are you serious? I'm married to Jane Fonda. And that, I have to say, that shut it down.
Christian, I mean, it was remarkable watching you cover the first Gulf War from the Middle East. Obviously, it had not been done in that way before CNN, the idea of a 24-hour news with reporters on the ground inside Baghdad. CNN was able to operate when others, their satellites were shut. I mean, their systems were shut down.
Yeah, well, look, CNN, people forget that he created CNN, as you pointed out, with that fantastic video clip about why he did it in 1980, 46 years ago. Then he went international in 1985 and essentially helped break down the barriers of information around the world in so many nations which only had state-controlled media in the dictatorships and authoritarian countries. If they could get a satellite downlink, and many people did surreptitiously, they could see different parts of the world and different information that they were getting force-fed by their own states. So when it came to the first Gulf War, CNN was overseas. No other TV network had the capacity to be broadcast all over the world like that and in real time. It was startup before startup. It was VOD, video on demand, before there was such a thing. I mean, he was so ahead of his time. But even the so-called enemy camp watched and understood, and the halls of power in almost every country in the world had CNN. So when it came time to that particular moment, CNN's amazing group of pioneers like producer Robert Wiener, and there was Nick Robertson, who was an engineer then, and Eason Jordan and Tom Johnson, all those people, and Ted Turner, basically said that we have the technology, we can do it. And Ted said, and this is crucial for today, we must cover all sides of the story. We must be across those front lines, even if the president and chief of, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs is telling us that's enemy territory and your people might get killed in the war. We will stay, of course, only volunteers. And we did, and that launched CNN into the global stratosphere. Yeah. Before that, CNN was purely American, and this made it a global behemoth.
He also, I mean, Judy, he revolutionized not just news and journalism, but what television could be. Where do you think that kind of determination, that vision for the future came from?
That's a hard question to answer, Anderson. We know very well now the story of his growing up. His father was a successful businessman in advertising in Atlanta, but he took his own life. And that had to have had a profound effect on Ted. There were times in his life when he battled depression. But I think he dealt with so much. I mean, Christian was closer to him than I was, but from my sense of him, he was someone who dealt with whatever came along by just dealing with it. He would say what was on his mind. And I have to share with you a story. After he had lost CNN, and it was Time Warner and AOL, I was at an event in New York, and I was walking with Richard Parsons, who was then the head of Time Warner, overseeing CNN, and there were a lot of frankly, people were being laid off. A lot of them. Ted was very unhappy about this. I had seen him. He was across the stairway, and he yelled over to me and to Dick. He said, "Hey, Judy, have they fired you yet?" He was so.
Wow.
He would say what was on his mind.
Yeah.
And he knew that Dick Parsons was standing there listening.
Yeah. Judy Woodruff, Christian Amanpour, it's great talking to you guys. Thank you so much. And remembering this remarkable, remarkable man. Really appreciate it. We'll be right back.
And up next, as I mentioned, we tonight are remembering a legend and a true visionary, the CNN founder, Ted Turner. He worked with two people that incredibly closely that are going to join me in the early days of this network.
I wish God had made us just a little bit smarter, that smart enough to where we didn't go to war with each other and practice cruelty on each other. If we were nice to each other, that's the kind of world that I envision and the world that I've been working for.
To act upon one's convictions while others wait, to create a positive force in a world where cynics abound, to provide information to people when it wasn't available before. I dedicate the news channel for America, the cable news network.
Ted Turner, the man who launched CNN, died today at the age of 87. He started this company nearly 46 years ago, transforming how the United States, and really the entire world, watched the news with the first ever 24-hour news channel.
Well, I actually thought about it back in 74, 75, 6 years before I did it. I thought it would be really convenient whenever you got home to be able to tune into the news instead of having to get home at 6:30 or wait till 11 o'clock, because in those days the news only came on in the early evening and very late.
And tonight, as we sit here nearly 46 years after the launch of this network, we strive to practice the principles that Ted set out for CNN.
I want to present both sides of controversial stories and let the viewers make up their mind rather than having Walter Cronkite make it up for you. He's always recommending what people ought to think. CNN didn't do that. We let people think for themselves. I figured that was the best way a democracy should be run.
Ted Turner did many things in his storied career and life, but he called CNN the greatest achievement of his life. And to help remember his life and his enduring legacy, my sources tonight are two people who knew him well: the CEO of C-SPAN, the former CNN vice president and our DC bureau chief, Sam Feist, and a trailblazing CNN Day One original, the former anchor and executive, Mary Alice Williams. And it is amazing to have both of you here tonight. But Mary Alice, you were hired by Ted, and you helped oversee the construction of the New York bureau. And I mean, those early days of CNN, I'll never forget when I read the first book on what it was like. I mean, it was chaotic, it was crazy, it was new.
And man, do I have stories. But Ted's motto was lead, follow, or get out of the way. So we didn't have a lot of choices. But, when you think of it, back in 1980, Ted was a wild man. I mean, a go-for-broke idea guy who believed that if all of us could see each other, the craziest idea perhaps was CNN, but he believed that if all of us could see each other, that we had shared challenges, that we could share practical solutions, that there was a chance, maybe a chance at world peace. He believed that. I know it sounds naive, even far-fetched, but that's the principle on which this network was founded.
And what was it like, I mean, now everyone is like, of course, I know what CNN is. You can watch it in other countries. You can see what's going on. But I mean, in those days, people probably thought you guys were insane.
Well, yes, and they called us names. You've heard Chicken Noodle News repeated today, I'm sure, a number of times. They did think that we were crazy, but it was, even though the giants of journalism at the time were poo-pooing us, they were coming down to the New York bureau and cheering us on and saying, I remember Mr. Cronkite saying, young lady, I'm going to teach you how to read 5 newspapers a day. I'll never forget that. But it was, I think the fun fact that people don't realize is that Ted and I had a rough beginning. He was my great supporter and dear friend, but we had a bit of a rough beginning. I was flown down to Atlanta so that Ted could meet the New York bureau chief. And I didn't make it into the door of his office when he was standing up and saying, "A woman, nobody told me." It was 1980, baby steps, 1980. And we, in short order, came to an agreement, sort of set of boundaries. And he became a great fan and a great friend. And in a short order, so many women were hired at CNN, and especially the New York bureau, that the WAG started calling us Petticoat Junction.
I mean, Sam Feist, I hear you laughing. When you hear that and you think of your decades at CNN, what is your favorite memory of Ted Turner?
Like Mary Alice, we have so many. You know, I started at CNN in 1990, so CNN was by then maybe a teenager. We were still scrappy. Ted loved to be a part of it. So when I started at CNN, I was working in the Atlanta newsroom. Ted lived right upstairs above the newsroom. And if there was a big news story, and I was working overnights, you could almost count on Ted and his wife, Jane Fonda, to come down the elevator, walk into the newsroom with a plate of cookies and brownies that probably Jane made. They were in their bathrobes. But he would visit with us. He wanted to know what was happening in the news. It was magical. He was a great boss. He was a visionary, and he loved the news. He just loved it, and he loved to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, and Sam, and obviously, you know, our coverage of the Gulf War is what took CNN from being known as Chicken Noodle News Network. I want you to listen to something that Ted Turner said about that coverage and what it meant for CNN.
I got up and I turned on the television and I turned to NBC and there was Tom Brokaw talking about the war. And I flipped over to ABC and there was Peter Jennings sitting at the desk talking about the war. And I flipped over to CBS and there was either Dan Rather or Walter Cronkite, whoever was there, talking about the war. And then I flipped over to CNN and there was the war. I missed the first shot, but not by much, maybe 5 minutes or so. And I said, I still believe that was the greatest scoop in the history of journalism.
I mean, Sam, it really says something about the reach CNN had in that moment.
It was the first time a war had ever been seen live on television. The prior war in the United States was the Vietnam War. None of that was live on television. The Gulf War was remarkable. We all remember Bernard Shaw in the Al Rashid Hotel telling the world what he was seeing. The skies over Baghdad are illuminated. And then we saw live from the battlefield live television pictures from Iraq, from Saudi Arabia, beamed around the world. It was remarkable at the time. We take it as second nature now. But no one had ever imagined that. And I think it didn't just change journalism, it changed warfare, and it ultimately created what I think Ted wanted to create, and as Mary Alice noted, that he thought he could create peace this way, a global village where we all could talk to each other at the same time in a way we weren't able to do before CNN.
Yeah, I mean, just in that moment, it also speaks to his legacy. It's gonna, I mean, you look at his life, but his legacy will go on forever. I mean, it's not an overstatement to say that he changed and transformed the news business.
The news business and the world as we understood each other. I remember in 1989, Bernard Shaw and I were sent to the funeral of Emperor Hirohito, the last of the World War II enemy combatants. And every king, every president and prime minister, every queen in the world was there for that funeral. And I thought, right, because we've all watched each other and they all knew what was going on.
Yeah. Well, it changed also global affairs. I mean, Christian was talking about how he didn't want to use the word foreign. He wanted to use the word international. I'd actually never heard that before until she said it today. But I mean, it changed that they could also watch the news from around the world and see what was happening in a way that they could not before.
I was struck that in being reminded that he said, I dedicate this television network to the United States of America. And in fact, in very short order, he had made it a global entity.
Yeah. I mean, Sam, you must have been talking to so many CNNers today about his legacy. Did you have a favorite story that you heard?
Well, first of all, you mentioned the word foreign. When he banned the F word, it was called the F word at CNN, anyone who used the word foreign was fined $50 out of their paycheck. And it was no joke, and it didn't take much time for a few people to be fined, and no one used the word foreign again.
Wow.
We quickly had an international desk and international correspondents and international bureaus, but it was real. And Christiane was right. It changed the way we thought about the word, and nobody, and I think still today, nobody uses the F word anywhere around CNN. It just doesn't come into your vocabulary.
I love that quote Mary Alice used: lead, follow, or get out of the way. Sam Feist and Mary Alice Williams, thank you both so much for being here tonight.
Thanks, Kaitlin.
Today, we here at CNN, along with others all around the world, are mourning the loss of a true legend. CNN founder Ted Turner died this morning at the age of 87, surrounded by his family. Turner was an innovator, and he was an icon.
I want to present both sides of controversial stories and let the viewers make up their mind rather than having Walter Cronkite make it up for you. He's always recommending what people ought to think. CNN didn't do that. We let people think for themselves. I figured that was the best way a democracy should be run.
But beyond revolutionizing the media and his business chops, one of Ted Turner's biggest impacts was on the earth. An environmentalist and a conservationist, he became one of the largest private landowners in the United States. He even helped create the 90s cartoon Captain Planet and the Planeteers to educate children about the environment.
Wind, water, heart, go planet! By your powers combined, I am Captain Planet! Captain Planet, he's our hero, gonna take pollution down to zero.
It really takes you back. The show encouraged youth activism and it popularized the power is yours catchphrase and spawned the Captain Planet Foundation, which has helped millions of young people engage in environmental projects. The series became one of Turner's favorite endeavors.
The best environmental idea I ever had by far was Captain Planet. We dealt with every subject. We even had 2 episodes on overpopulation. We had them on warfare. Mostly they were environmental. And we really simplified those. Most of y'all have seen it.
Still, Turner often called CNN the greatest achievement of his life. And today, at CNN's world headquarters in Atlanta, messages of thanks and tribute left by the staff now cover those famous 3 letters. A simple but powerful thank you for the vision that changed how the world sees the news.
Next, a special tribute to an American original, Ted Turner, the visionary who created this very network and whose philanthropy set a new tone for the billionaire class.
There's a lot of people that are washing money that they don't know what to do with. And I'm not asking anybody to give away the money that they know what to do with. Just the money they don't know what to do with. I dedicate the news channel for America, the cable news network.
I can go on and on about the things Ted Turner will be remembered for years from now. Launching CNN, pioneering 24-hour news, starting Turner Classic Movies, TNT, Cartoon Network, Captain Planet, owner of the Atlanta Braves, the Hawks, his philanthropy, his work as a conservationist. My colleague Christiana Mampour said it best. He was the original. He made us all strive for his vision of a better world. I want you to listen to what Ted told Christiane about his legacy in one of his final interviews.
What do you most want to be remembered for?
The good things I've done.
What's your proudest achievement?
My family first, and outside my family, CNN.
And what advice would you have for any young person who came to say, Ted, you've done it all. What can you tell me?
Clean energy.
Joining me now, presidential historian Douglas Brinkley. Doug, it's so good to see you. I mean, look, his advice to young people there, it was very telling. Clean energy. And we can't forget this is the same man who made the cartoon Captain Planet about an environmentalist superhero. I wonder how much of his legacy will be defined not only, of course, from CNN, but by his philanthropy, his conservationism.
Well, that's a great question. I think always the CNN story, the media story, the boom out of Atlanta in 1980 was CNN. But history is going to judge him as this extraordinary conservationist and environmentalist. I'm not exaggerating. I've written books about Theodore Roosevelt and conservation and FDR. In our era, what Jimmy Carter did as president, saving lands in Alaska, and what Ted Turner did, teaching us how to protect endangered species, you know, falcon and bison, owning 2 million acres. He started at the Bar None Ranch in Montana. He loves the outdoors, but he loved the idea of wild America, the outdoor America, wilderness, and that if we just built strip malls and poured concrete, we'd lose what was so special and unique about our national character. So I put him as one of the top conservationists of our lifetime, Laura. He was a kingpin at it and did so many things.
I mean, the tributes have been pouring in all day, and they've been pouring in from people on both sides. I mean, that is very rare in this age of growing anti-billionaire sentiment. What do you think set him apart from the kinds of billionaires that we see today?
Well, and to your point, you know, I saw Rupert Murdoch of Fox News talking about what a game changer Ted Turner was just in general in his life. Ted Turner, as you just played the great clip, family. He has 5 kids. I hope they're watching right now. He has 14 grandkids, and they're all involved with his philanthropy on saving lands, on clean air, and on clean water, on making the earth a healthier place. And in addition to conservation, and I was there, I was young in the 90s in the ballroom, like eating the bad chicken, when he made the pledge for the $1 billion to the United Nations Foundation at that dinner. It blew everybody's mind because he said, let's do it. Here's $1 billion. Where's your billion? Where's your billion? He had chutzpah. He had humor. He was wild-eyed. He could be a bit of a troublemaker, but he marched, like Henry David Thoreau used to say, to the beat of his own drum. Nothing phony about Ted Turner. You're dealing with somebody unvarnished, raw, who had vision, and his visions are going to live on, because this idea of teaching young people to not have nature deficit disorder, to not know about, you know, fish and birds and flora. There is no world if we just start destroying it all. And Ted Turner, beyond being the billionaire businessman, really did so much as a teacher, and wanted to teach young people about planet Earth and to take care of it. And part of that was his fight against nuclear weapons, non-nuclear proliferation.
Yeah.
Not just Ted Turner, but Secretary of State, former Secretary of State George Shultz, a Republican, was doing the same thing. We can't keep building nukes and expect to be on planet Earth. He's not looking at Mars. He's looking at how to be a caretaker, steward here in America. So anybody who loves state parks and outdoor life needs to salute Ted Turner. And it's sad we lost him, but his vision on ecology environment will live onwards.
Obviously, his vision of the news, game-changing. I wonder how it changed our relationship with politics.
it changed it mightily. And, you know, look, in 1991, Turner became Time Magazine's Person of the Year, the year that the Soviet Union broke up. He was that giant. And I remember 1987, the Challenger disaster, CNN would cover it, the Gulf War cover it. You know, CNN changed the world, and Ted Turner's the one who started bringing news to us in a different way. And he cast a large shadow in Atlanta and Montana and beyond.
I never got a chance to meet him, and yet I thank him for the opportunity to be here. Douglas Brinkley, thank you so much. Thank
you, Laura.
And thank you for watching. The Story Is with Elex Michaelson starts right now.
I'm Elex Michaelson, live in Los Angeles. Here's what's ahead on The Story Is.
The story is close to a deal. New developments in negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. The story is remembering Ted Turner. We'll look back at Christian Amanpour's sit down with him. Plus, media analyst Sarah Fisher here live, as is Atlanta Braves legend Dale Murphy.
Live from Los Angeles, The Story Is with Elex Michaelson.
It's an honor to join you live on the cable news network founded by Ted Turner. We'll have more on him throughout the show. But the top story is signs of progress on talks to end the war with Iran. Our thanks to Will Ripley for that. The top California gubernatorial candidates take the stage for another showdown before the primary, one night after I moderated their last debate. Coming up, I'll discuss all of it with Politico's California Bureau Chief Melanie Mason here live. But up next, we're remembering CNN founder Ted Turner. We'll speak with baseball legend Dale Murphy about Turner's time as owner of the Atlanta Braves. Stay with us. The story is remembering Ted Turner, the legendary and outspoken media maverick who revolutionized television news when he founded this network, CNN. He passed away today at the age of 87 after a long battle with Lewy body dementia. But the billionaire businessman will be remembered for so much more than just this network. He was an international salesman, a statesman, a philanthropist, a conservationist, a sports enthusiast. CNN's chief international anchor, Christian Amanpour, who knew him well, has this tribute.
I dedicate the news channel for America.
Ted Turner, the man who changed the world by creating CNN in 1980. It was the first on-demand global television news channel.
Were you trying to create a revolution with 24/7 news, or were you just trying to find another brilliant business opportunity?
Both. I thought it through very carefully. That's what I did. I studied the situation, and I knew what I was doing. At least I felt like I knew what I was doing, and it turned out that I did.
But Ted Turner's accomplishments have an even wider reach than the global network he built, a lifetime of work that put him ahead of the curve with every chance he took.
Ted Turner.
A true Renaissance man, Ted Turner defied labels. Yes, he became a billionaire businessman, but he was also a philanthropist, a conservationist, a sports champion.
Aren't they cool? I never get tired of them.
And an optimist, as he told me when I visited him on his Montana ranch in 2015, surrounded by his beloved bison, a species he had nearly single-handedly brought back from the brink of extinction.
Remember, I'm supposed to be shooting for something that's impossible to have happen in my lifetime.
And he had the Midas touch every time he dreamed the impossible dream. In 1997, he donated $1 billion to help support the United Nations by creating the United Nations Foundation. It was a jaw-dropping gift that stunned the world, but like many of Turner's endeavors, it made perfect sense to him.
As of December 31st, I was worth $2.2 billion. And I looked at it that morning real quick because I don't have a lot of time to look at my own statement, and I was up to 3.2 because the stock went up so much during the year. So I made it 9 months. I'm only giving up 9 months earnings. It's not that big a deal. I'm no poorer than I was not 9 months ago, and the world is a lot better off.
Turner sold CNN to Time Warner in 1996 and stayed on as vice chairman. By 2000, his fortune and his influence at CNN were waning after the disastrous Time Warner merger with AOL. But still, he pursued his causes. He avidly fought for the eradication of nuclear weapons. In 2001, he co-founded the Nuclear Threat Initiative, an organization that has worked to corral loose nukes and aims to reduce the weapons of mass destruction in the world.
The only thing that we can do is have total nuclear disarmament. Either we all have nuclear weapons or we all don't have them. And I'm in real favor of not having them. We should get rid of all of them. We don't want to destroy the world.
He was a man who pushed boundaries. He met with dictators like Fidel Castro. He founded the Goodwill Games, which helped to ease tensions between the U.S. and the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War.
The skies over Baghdad have been illuminated.
He insisted CNN must be behind enemy lines in Baghdad to report that side of the first Gulf War, cementing the network as the global leader in breaking news. Before spearheading the media revolution, Ted Turner was a champion sailor, winning the prestigious America's Cup. Later, he bought his adopted hometown baseball team, the Atlanta Braves, and its basketball team, the Atlanta Hawks. A career that wasn't linear but radiated in so many different directions, a one of a kind. And when I asked him to look back on his achievements, some were sentimental and others, in true Ted Turner fashion, were about changing the world.
What do you most want to be remembered for?
The good things I've done.
What's your proudest achievement?
My family first, and outside my family, CNN.
And what advice would you have for any young person who came to say, Ted, you've done it all, what can you tell me?
Clean energy.
A cautionary and profitable piece of advice to any government or anyone from a true visionary.
What a life. Christiane Amanpour, thanks for that great look back. As a longtime Atlanta Brave, baseball legend Dale Murphy knew Ted Turner well. The former NL MVP, 7-time All-Star, joins us live now from Utah. Thanks so much for being with us. How did Ted Turner change baseball?
Well, like someone said today, I read that whether people know it or not, especially the young people, they're enjoying sports and watching the Braves and everything that they like to do as far as the sports world is concerned in a world created by Ted Turner. It was revolutionary. If you remember, when I was growing up, we watched one game a week, and it was a national broadcast with announcers that didn't really know the teams, but would come on and we'd see a national broadcast. Ted bought the Braves and decided to put them on for 140, 150 games wherever you had cable or a satellite dish, even in the metro Atlanta area, no blackouts. And what he created as a result of that was a couple generations, and it's still going, of not only Atlanta Braves fans, but also baseball fans. So he revolutionized broadcast sports, and we're all beneficiaries of that. And to be able to be with the Braves in those early days, I remember I was in San Francisco walking along Fisherman's Wharf, and someone came up to me and said, "Hey, Murph, big fan." And I said, "Great, where are you from?" They said, "Oh, I'm from Anchorage, Alaska." This is the closest we could get to watch the Braves, but we watch every game up in Anchorage. And I'll tell you, it happens everywhere I go, every state. There's a great phrase that's been coined. These are TBS kids, and they grew up watching the Braves and TBS, and there's fans all over, not only the world, but also especially the United States. I mean, it was a remarkable time, and it was amazing.
Well, because you think about it now, the entire economics of baseball and basketball and football is really TV deals, TV rights deals, because that's what pays everybody's salaries. It's not really the tickets people going to the games. It's also these regional sports networks that cover him on different cable networks, and all of that is why the tickets are so high, the salaries are so high, all of that, and that all kind of comes from Ted Turner, which is extraordinary, and it is why, sports is the most popular thing on TV by a mile. So what was Ted Turner like as a man? What was he like in the clubhouse?
Well, a little unpredictable, but you knew when he was in the clubhouse. That's for sure. I remember I was struggling one year, and I was in the middle of the slump, and he walked into the clubhouse and said, "Hey, Murph, don't worry about this slump you're in." I mean, he didn't say it to me. He said it to the whole team. "Don't worry about this slump you're in, Murph. You're saving me hundreds of thousands of dollars in our next negotiation." And I was like, whatever, Ted. One memorable experience in typical Ted fashion, my agent said, "Murph, we're gonna go negotiate. This is your first big contract. We're gonna go negotiate with Ted instead of the typical way, which is with the general manager." I said, "I don't think I like this idea, but okay." We went in there. He laid down on the couch, put his hands behind his head, and was looking up at the ceiling and said, "Okay, Murph, hit me with the bad news." And we made a case for the contract. All I remember was he stood up and yelled at us, basically said, "What? You got to be kidding!" And as he was walking out of his office and slamming his door shut, he said, "That'll never happen." And he walked out. So I looked at my agent. I said, "I told you this was a bad idea." And he said, "That's just Ted being Ted. He's negotiating." And he knew I would crumble in a situation like that. But Nancy and I he took care of his players. I have no complaints. He wanted to win. He paid us top dollar. He was very competitive. We learned about his intensity from his experience in the America's Cup races. He was a great skipper. Determined, and it just took the rest of us a while to catch up to what he was thinking. Thinking.
Yeah, and if you had to, in one sentence, say Ted Turner's legacy, what do you think it is?
Changed the world in ways that a normal person could just dream about. Not only in sports, but as we've heard today. In philanthropy, environmentalism, peace, tried to get rid of nuclear weapons, saw the world as a community, not just our local communities. That's more than one word, but it takes a lot of words to
There's a lot of
describe
hyphens
Ted.
and semicolons in that sentence, but you need that after this life well lived. Dale Murphy, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you
perspective.
very much.
Great to talk with you. Now let's bring into the conversation Sarah Fisher, CNN media analyst and Axios media correspondent as well. Sarah, great to have you here in Los Angeles. Let's talk about the way he changed the world in terms of broadcasting now. It all started with the Turner Broadcasting System, which in itself, even before he started CNN, was pretty revolutionary.
Yes, and actually, let me take you back even before that. He bought a local station in Atlanta. He renamed it Watch This Channel Grow, right? That's a symbol of how aspirational he was. And he took that local channel, and he was the first to use satellite to make it nationally syndicated on cable. From there, he was able to build the Turner Broadcasting System and behemoth that we now know today, which has, of course, the TBS network, as well as CNN, eventually Cartoon Network, eventually Turner Classic Movies.
TNT.
Yes. And so what he did was he was the first person to say, you know what? We can broadcast something locally to the entire country. And that changed the world.
And it changed sports, as we heard in a huge way as well.
Absolutely.
But of course, the thing he said that he was proudest of, other than his family, was this network.
Yes.
The cable news network.
Yes. And people thought he
CNN.
was crazy.
Yeah,
at
talk
the
about
time.
the idea behind it and the start of CNN.
You know, the broadcasters owned national news. And at the time, he had this wacky idea. Cable news could go 24/7 in terms of live programming. Nobody had ever thought to do something like that with news. So he comes out in 1980, he creates CNN, And in some ways, it was the perfect timing because he was the first person to really get some of the biggest global events broadcast to the American public 24/7. You think about the Gulf War.
Yeah.
Think about the Iran hostage crisis. I think many years later, even in 2001 with what happened in 9/11,
Sure.
you know, we had other cable nets at the time, MS and Fox, but they were younger. They weren't as established covering these types of big stories.
Mhm.
So Ted put CNN on the map so that there was a network there to give the American people this news and access. And that's amazing.
Yeah, and really changed so many things. And you mentioned Fox. The head of Fox actually put out a statement, Rupert Murdoch.
He did.
And he wrote, Ted Turner's vision for 24-hour cable news transformed the media industry and gave viewers everywhere a front row seat to witness history unfold. His impact as a trailblazer has left an indelible mark on our cultural landscape. He was a great American and friend. Pretty glowing statement from the man who runs the Fox News channel, because there is no Fox News channel without CNN. And let's talk about that, how cable news itself has changed the country, the way we talk, some for the better, some for the worse,
Yes.
but definitely changed our politics and the way we communicate in a huge way.
What was revolutionary about bringing news in that way to cable is that cable is not regulated the same way that broadcast is. And so you were able to be edgier. You could say different things. You could be more selective about your advertisers. That empowered these networks to take more of a political stance. That's why you have partisan cable networks in a way that you couldn't with national broadcast networks. Now, of course, we know how that changed politics. It brought debates to the forefront. It brought pundits to the forefront. We didn't have that same type of pundit landscape in the broadcast
Because you didn't have the
world.
room, right? If you're
Correct.
doing a 22-minute evening broadcast, you don't have the room to have a real debate. But if you're on 24 hours a day, you've got more time to fill and more space to explore issues.
Yes, it also brought local politics national. Because when you think about it, if you're a local congressman, you weren't going to get a spot on NBC News at night or on the Today Show or Good Morning America in the morning. You were too small for that. But you could, from the Capitol Hill Rotunda, get on a cable network. And when you started to build a national profile, then you could start to raise money nationally. He really started to change politics because he nationalized local politics in a way we'd never seen before.
And cable news is in a different place now than
Yeah.
even when he left it. He kind of left it at the
peak.
At the peak.
Yes.
And now it's in a new era.
It is in a new era. At its peak, more than 100 million American households subscribed to cable. Right now, it's down to around 60 million. So it's lost about 40% of its reach. And that's because, of course, more people are streaming content. But cable is still big. I don't want to say that it's not impactful.
Yeah.
60 million households, major streamers would kill to have that kind of penetration. The challenge is, as sports rights move to streaming, so will many of the other networks. But Ted Turner, he built this entire empire that now still reaches to this day 60 million people. There's something to be said for that.
And not only that, a brand like CNN reaches so many people in
Around
the
the
digital
world.
and streaming plants in 200 countries around the world
Yes.
and all the rest of it. So I'll ask you the same wrap-up question that I asked him. How do you describe Ted Turner's legacy in a sentence?
Ted Turner is somebody who inspired other people who had success to give back. Donating $1 billion to create the United Nations Foundation is what eventually led to the Gates Foundation. It's what eventually led to the Giving Pledge. It's what has inspired billionaires today to recognize that the right thing to do is to give back. That is his true legacy.
It is unbelievable that you think that one man was able to do this much with one life, but it shows that one man really can change the world.
Absolutely.
Or woman. Sarah Fisher, great to have you in Los Angeles. Come visit us more often.
Thank you, Alex.
We'll be back with more of The Story Is as we remember Ted Turner. The first hour of The Story Is, the next hour starts right now.
The story is a proposal to end the war. The story is Maverick. Voices from around the world remembering Ted Turner and his legacy. NBA legend Dominique Wilkins with me talk about how Turner made him an Atlanta Hawk.
I don't know how to quit. It's not in my genes.
Live from Los Angeles, The Story Is with Elex Michaelson.
Thanks for being with us here on The Story Is. I'm Elex Michaelson, live in Los Angeles. Tonight, the top story is waiting on Iran's response.
I dedicate the news channel for America, the cable news network.
That is Ted Turner, nearly 46 years ago, announcing the launch of this very network, CNN. The visionary media mogul and philanthropist passed away Wednesday at the age of 87. His business acumen extended far beyond CNN. He owned the Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta Hawks. He founded a slew of cable channels, TNT, Headline News, Turner Classic Movies, the Cartoon Network, and more. And he met with world leaders like Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Cuba's Fidel Castro. Turner wanted to eliminate nuclear weapons and co-founded the Nuclear Threat Initiative in 2001. And he donated $1 billion to support United Nations causes.
I wish God had made us just a little bit smarter, that smart enough to where we didn't go to war with each other and practice cruelty on each other. If we were nice to each other, that's the kind of world that I envision and the world that I've been working for.
Ted Turner was also a bison rancher, founder of the Goodwill Games, and a competitive yachtsman. CNN's Omar Jimenez has more on Turner's passion for sports.
You won the America's Cup.
Well, won the World Series.
Were you a natural at it?
No, I was not a natural.
You had to learn it.
I had worked very hard. It took me a number of years to become a champion.
Ted Turner may have been as well known in sports as he was in media. In 1977, he skippered the yacht Courageous to victory in the America's Cup sailing race, and he was inducted into the America's Cup Hall of Fame in 1993. He was described as the last true amateur to win the Cup. Before winning America's Cup, Turner bought the fledgling Atlanta Braves baseball team in 1976. 2 decades later, in 1995, under Turner, the Braves won their first World Series.
Welcome. Welcome, everyone.
The stadium, built for the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, would be renamed Turner Field.
This is going to be a big hit in New York, and this is going to be a big hit in 2001.
Turner launched the Goodwill Games in 1986 as an alternative to the boycott-plagued Olympics. Turner also owned the Atlanta Hawks, Atlanta Thrashers, and World Championship Wrestling. The Hawks retired a jersey in honor of the 24 years Turner owned the team.
If you work hard at a sport that you like, I did like it, and you have success at it, it gives you a feeling of accomplishment and a rush when you're out there and you come through, when you triumph.
Let's talk more about Ted Turner's impact on sports with Dominique Wilkins, the Vice President of Basketball and Special Advisor to the CEO of the Atlanta Hawks. Dominique Wilkins, welcome to The Story Is.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
And of course, it's fitting that you are joining us from Atlanta. How did Ted Turner change your life in particular?
Well, when I came to Georgia, of course, I went to the University of Georgia. So right before I came out of college, is one of the teams I always wanted to play for was the Atlanta Hawks. Had no idea that I would have that opportunity. I remember Mike Guerin Sr., who was the president of the team at that time, and Hank Aaron went to Ted and said, hey, if you can get this kid in a trade, Dominique Wilkins, you got to get him by any means necessary. And Ted is the one that made the move to get me out of Utah to Atlanta. And that was the start of changing my life. Because if you know anything about Ted Turner in those days, he was the pioneer of cable sports, CNN, all these things that people, the luxuries they have today, that spears from Ted Turner, because he was the first one to do it. The Hawks were the first team that was on television every night. And more importantly, he was a friend. He was a very close friend.
I mean, what was he like in person? What was he like as a friend?
He was nuts. he was nuts, man. I remember, again, man, when he used to come in the locker room, he was one of those owners that never involved, man. He just loved to be around the team. And I remember him coming in our locker rooms, and he would just sit on the floor and just listen in on the meetings. And he would say a few words, and then he would leave, man. He was a great owner to play for. I tell you, one of the best owners, we had with that organization up till this point, and then we got our new ownership. But they were, that ownership was great.
Yeah, and we're looking right now at video of his name being raised into the rafters in Atlanta, which is not far from where your jersey is retired in Atlanta. There we see David Stern, who was then the commissioner of the NBA, doing the honors there with Ted Turner. What does it mean for you to have your name right next to Ted Turner in an arena that might not be downtown without Ted Turner?
You're absolutely right. And I look at it like this. Ted and I, even though he was the elder statesman, I kind of felt like we grew together in this city and really creating a personality here as far as basketball. And I think that was the start of Ted and myself coming together, in Atlanta, those times where we put together some great teams, great games, and really we put on a great show there. And he was the architect to all of that. So, he's going to be missed, man. I tell you, he was just a wonderful guy to play for, and he became a wonderful friend of mine over time. And I'll tell you a quick story. I remember when I got traded, and I remember we were coming down the escalator, and we were then CNN. He said to Jim at the time, he said, "Why do you ever trade Neek without my permission?" He said, "I should fire everybody for doing that." I remember that like it was yesterday. And that's what kind of guy he was. And he didn't say anything just to be saying it. He meant every word he said. He was that kind of guy.
Of course, you've got a leadership role with the team now. Ted wrote this long book about leadership, his life, which is really great. What's sort of the most important thing you learned about leadership from watching Ted Turner in person?
Well, I think one of the biggest things I learned from Ted is being able to take calculated risks. Don't be afraid of the moment. And he always told me, "Hey, Neek, man, in order to get big and ever to do it big, you can't be afraid to take big steps." And that came from Ted Turner. We had a lot of conversations, man. It was much more than like an owner-player relationship. We had a true friendship. And a lot of things that I did early in my life, after I retired, a lot of stuff that I talked to Ted about. So he turned me on to a lot of cool stuff.
Well, Dominique Wilkins, it is so great to have you here on CNN honoring Ted Turner's life. Thank you for all the joy that you have brought to so many of us. One of the great dunkers of all time, great broadcaster, now great executive with the Atlanta Hawks. Thank you so much for being with us.
No, thank you, man. Thank you. I'm glad they recognize him in this way. He deserves it. So thank you for having me.
CNN employees are remembering the life and legacy of Ted Turner. CNN employees left notes on the famed red letters at CNN's headquarters in Atlanta. That is where Turner launched this 24-hour news network on June 1st, 1980. Several of our anchors and reporters look back on how Ted Turner changed their lives forever.
At one point, Ted Turner said to me, "We have an opening. We want you to be our Pentagon correspondent." And I said, "Pentagon correspondent?" I said, "I'm not really an expert on the Pentagon or the military." But he said, "You're a great journalist. You're breaking stories. You can go to the Pentagon. You can go to Toledo. You can go to Timbuktu. You'll break news. That's what we want at CNN. We want you to go to the Pentagon and break news." That was my first day at the Pentagon, May 8th, 1990. And I thought it was going to be a relatively slow beat because the Cold War was winding down. The U.S. was closing a lot of military bases all over the country. I thought it would be a slow beat, but a few months later, Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. Operation Desert Shield becomes Operation Desert Storm, and then everybody on earth is watching CNN and watching me report from the Pentagon, military affairs correspondent. And it changed my life, obviously.
I remember it was my first time to the United States, and I'd obviously done a lot of research about CNN, and I got Ted's vision, and it was like, this It's who I want to work for. This is where I want to be. And I walked into the Omni Hotel in the CNN Center on the evening of Friday, the 26th of January, 1990. And you know who is sitting with his family having his dinner in the restaurant? That was Ted Turner. I didn't really see him again. I was hired by the chief engineer the next day and back to London before I could turn around. And I don't think I saw Ted for 10 years or more than that. That was because we were going to the ends of the earth all the time to get the news. I met my wife because of Ted Turner. We were on the road together, working for CNN, going into Baghdad during the war. Ted gave us the passion, the commitment to do that, the inspirational things we did.
He also was very clear that we had to cover all sides of the story. We could not just cover it from one perspective. In fact, he banned the word foreign news or foreign correspondent at one point. He called us international. And that was him saying we're all part of one global community. And it might sound quaint today, but it's what we all believed in. And he told us that we had to be the eyes and ears of people out in the world. We needed to be able to go out into the world and report back with real facts, with real eyewitness, with real, images and storytelling to make people understand the very complex and often dangerous world, often uplifting world that they lived in and their part in it.
You're watching The Story Is. For our international viewers, World Sport is next. For our viewers in North America, I'll be back with more news. We end in the lobby here at CNN's LA Bureau. Every single employee and guest, the first thing they see when they walk in here is Ted Turner's face, because none of us would be here without Ted Turner. The idea for the cable news network and cable news itself all came from Ted Turner. And when you leave this building, the last thing you see is this quote from Ted Turner: "Do something. Either lead, follow, or get out of the way." Ted Turner chose to lead, and all of us are better for it. Thanks for watching The Story Is. I'm Elex Michaelson in Los Angeles, and this is CNN.